I have to tell you, I'm very excited about talking to you, Dave, because I don't know if you're aware of this, because I stalk you relentlessly on Twitter. I love Spirit of 77. It is a fantastic game.
Well, I'm really happy about the nice little gift you left on the porch there. That was pretty nice, with the candles and.
I thought it was a steaming pile of dog poop.
No, Kevin, it was a birthday cake. That's why it was on fire. Now we are talking to Dave this week, who is the Dave. What's your last name, buddy?
Kizzia, but don't worry, nobody gets it right.
All right, so we're talking to Dave Kizzia. Kizzia. We're talking to Dave Kizzia, who is the writer of Spirit of 77 for Monkey Fun Studios and a bunch of other role-playing games.
One of the writers, that's correct.
Yes, Bedlam Hall, you guys do. Gruel Truck, you guys do. You guys have all kinds of RPGs out there, and I know people. Normally, we interview people who create comics and writers, but it's in my brain, in my mind, it's all kind of the same thing, because you are writing, you're creating this fictional world, and
world building.
It's world building, and the process of like creating an RPG kind of fascinates me. So I'm abusing my own power here and speaking to you directly because I'm interested. This is fascinating to me.
Not a problem. So one of the things, I mean, how do you want to start? Do you want me to
we can just, like, when did you start writing? Like, how did you get into writing in general? Did you start with screenplays? Did you start with, like, did you write comics? Had you always? Yeah.
I've actually been one of those guys that always kind of wrote stuff, throughout, throughout my life. I can honestly say I spent a lot of high school years just drawing little comics and writing out stuff myself, passing in between friends and what have you, when I should have been studying. And, I have, like I said, I had done a lot of writing and had originally gone to school for communications for TV and film.
Okay.
And that kind of went, my career went a different path on a professional level, but I had always been doing a lot of role-playing games, doing adventures, different kinds of concepts, and about, I want to say 3 years ago, I think 3 is probably accurate. My buddy Bob and I, Bob Richardson is the other writer of Spirit of 77. He and I had known each other for easily a decade, and we were just kind of talking about a new project that we wanted to do together. We had always been interested in 70s pop culture. We just were into it. So I had written some notes about a possible game, and Bob took a look at them, and then we just kind of traded ideas back and forth, and then started writing. And we probably wrote the first 20 to 30 pages in a clip of about a week, maybe 2. Yeah, we were just going nonstop, and that turned out to be what we originally created as a Spirit of 77. We both had been familiar with role-playing games. We had done a lot of them. And we knew that there were, right now we're at a very good time for role-playing games in terms of the industry, and the fact that there's a lot of different systems. It's not just one group doing it or like big guys doing it. Now independent RPGs are now having as much credibility and as much influence within the RPG world as the big guys. So it wasn't difficult for us to find a rule set that we thought would really mesh well with the genre we want to do. We did it basically genre, then the rule system.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and actually, that's it's now at a point where if you have an interesting idea for a game, you don't necessarily have to be a rules lawyer or mathematician or something like that. It definitely helps, like some of the minutia, but it's something where you can go out there, and there's a lot of great products out there that will basically give you the mechanics for free, like Fate is out there, Savage Worlds is out there, and obviously powered by the Apocalypse, which is what we based Spirit of 77 on.
Okay.
we got to a certain point where we realized, okay, we have a lot here. We don't know for sure if other people are going to find it interesting, but we felt really strongly about it. I mean, it was just something that we did. We would have entire games like Bob has seen every episode of the Rockford Files, and in comparison, I actually have owned both in tape or VHS and in DVD.
That's awesome.
Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band starring Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees.
That is a terrible movie. I mean, that is just the worst movie.
No, sir. No, I defy you. And I'll tell you why. Because I think it's one of the best movies ever, because at the very end, when Aerosmith comes out as the bad guys, I don't care who you are. If you sit there and going, I don't want to be a rock star after seeing that, you're lying to me and to yourself, because they come out, they're so coked up. They're barely standing. They're greasy. They're dirty. And you can just feel people feeling, uncomfortable, like holding on to their girlfriends in the theater, just saying, don't look at them. And that's the stuff that real 70s rock bands should be like. And I own that. I do. I love that. And actually, that kind of brought my wife and I together. It was one of those things that we realized we were meant for one another.
She was yearning for a coked up Steven Tyler, and you're like,
she found me. There you go.
Oh, she was looking for somebody to hold her in the theater, and you were there.
No, she wanted the coked up Steven.
Oh, okay. All right.
I will say this for Sergeant Pepper's: it's the second worst rock and roll movie ever, behind the Kiss Phantom in the Park, which is the shittiest movie ever made.
Oh, there's so much shittier. Don't even pretend.
Dude, I mean, the Kiss movie, they don't even say their own lines. They're dubbed.
Only Peter Criss. Apparently, and yeah, I am actually a student of that movie too. But there are so many worse ones. Let's see, because we had to do a lot of research into this. There's a movie called Phantom of the Paradise. Have you ever heard of this one?
I've not heard of this.
I know. I have heard of this movie.
Yes, it is. Phantom of the Paradise is great because it's kind of like a cross between Faust and Phantom of the Opera, and it has Paul Williams.
Kevin, you were telling somebody was telling me about this movie where Paul Williams. Yeah. Go ahead.
He plays the devil. He plays an agent of the devil, and it stars Jessica Harper, who later was in the sequel to Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's one of those things that you just go, where?
And he wears like this crazy mask.
Yes,
he has this crazy mask on, and it's like if David Bowie
was short and unattractive.
Opera, Ziggy Stardust meets Phantom of the Opera.
It's fantastic.
With a midget.
It's crazy.
So anyway, like I said, it was something we really, knew the genre, and we knew we liked Smokey and the Bandit. We loved the Warriors, all those things. We wanted to put it in one setting. So we had this, and we realized, okay, other people may like it too. So we decided, okay, let's bite the bullet and do a Kickstarter. And Kickstarters, again, are a great way to not just, be able to develop a project, but it also allows you to see whether or not there are people who are into your concepts. So we really were successful in the fact that we did very well very quickly.
Okay.
And we managed to not only have the core book, which is, again, the Spirit of 77, but we also had the expansion, which is Wide World of 77, which were the elements that we didn't get to include in the core book, that were things like Demolition Derby,
yes,
Luchador Wrestling,
yes,
Rollerball. God, I love Rollerball. And it also allowed us to have some of the adventures that we wanted to put in there, like a Jurassic parking lot, and the Boom Show, which is actually one of my favorites, and Diamonds Are Whenever, which is the car wash meets Boys of Brazil plotline.
This game, I can't explain to the listening audience how fucking fantastic this game is, because it has all the elements, like you were saying, of like Shaft and Columbo and the Rockford Files, but yet it also has the Warriors, but it also kind of has that like weird Marvel 70s vibe to it, that weird comic vibe, because Marvel Comics in the 70s was a strange place. It was a strange, weird place. And this book just taps into that so perfectly. I was at the game shop and I was looking for a new game to play because, like, you can play sword and sorcery all day and all night. And I was just kind of getting tired of that genre. And the guy who runs my game shop, a guy by the name of Todd at Gateway Games in Cincinnati, Ohio, said, dude, you should look into this game. And he handed me Spirit of 77. And I was like, this is amazing. Like,
No.
it's an exploitation game, and it's
which
fantastic.
It leads me to my question for Dave. So,
Sure.
What was your RPG gateway drug? Because everybody's got one, and usually it's the same one. But I just want to see if yours was the same as what I'm thinking it is.
Well, when you say what was my first game, or what was the one that
your RPG gateway drug is what I was using the 70s terminology. What was your RPG gateway drug? What was the first one you played that got you into RPGs?
You know, that's a funny question. And the reason I say that is because most people say, yeah, my first game was D&D. Everybody.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
But it isn't. Actually, it was not the first game I played. The first game I played was a game called Gangbusters that was put out by TSR. And TSR, it was interesting that TSR did a whole series of games that were non-D&D genre. Like Gangbusters was like the Roaring Twenties. I owned Boot Hill, which was their Western RPG. Yes, yeah. Star Frontiers, Gamma World. And I think that probably had a bit of an influence on me in that I saw RPGs as things that could be beyond just swords and sorcery and the fantasy setting. Because, as I said, the first real exposure I had was playing Gangbusters and then Boot Hill. And so I realized that games could be more focused on specific genres and more modular than just saying, okay, we're going to do this, but we're going to throw swords in there. It can be a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm. And I would say Spirit of 77 is a lot more than that. It's kind of, there is a fun, I guess, alternative history going on where Richard Nixon was just, when Watergate happened, he just kind of came out and said, yeah, my bad. And everybody forgave him. And so the game kind of goes from that point on. Like, so it's like post Nixon Watergate, but everything is okay. So how did you develop the idea, the alt history for the game?
So there's an interesting thing. Okay, and again, one of those weird pieces of trivia. So, on the moon, hand to God, on the moon there is a plaque, and that plaque was left there by one of the Apollo missions. That was it was a dedication to basically the moon landing, and it's written by the president at the time, Richard Milhouse Nixon. So think about that for a second. If you think about also in the Voyager satellites also went out in the early 70s, the gold record and all that. And so really anybody from an alien culture or civilization, the first leader of the free world they're going to meet will be or will be familiar with will be Richard Nixon. Okay. Think about that. I mean, it's true. So the point is that we wanted to kind of have you bring up a lot of the 70s Marvel stuff, and yeah, there's a lot of that, but also that kind of Ziggy Stardust kind of mythos where it's like, okay, he talks about being an alien, and then of course there's the man who fell to Earth and lots of stuff like that. So
brother from another planet.
Exactly. Yeah, you plug all that in, how would that all develop? And it kind of formed into its own mythos, and actually part of it also was, okay, so you have aliens talk with Nixon, then what do? Okay, well, he would obviously cover it up because that's Nixon. So and again, just to kind of put this in perspective, what you're talking about is great stuff, but it isn't necessarily something people have to do with a Spirit of 77. It's something that we include in there, but the nice thing about what we tried to do was that if people wanted to just say, I just want to have, I just want to race cars and shoot things and blow stuff up, it's like, cool, we have a game for you. If you wanted to do something where it's like, okay, I really want to be kind of like 3 Days of the Condor and I want to make it more of a conspiracy thing, yeah, it's in there too, and you could go that way. That's kind of why we liked the Powered by the Apocalypse genre. It's a rule system that had been created by Vincent Baker, who did Apocalypse World, and he says very clearly, you make the game the way you feel it should. He refers to what's called the fiction, and the fiction is what's developed with the storyteller and the players, and what you put together around the table basically drives how things go. And, we like to have it a little bit zany, a little bit, fly by the seat of the pants, but I've seen games that can get very gritty and be very, street level, like Daredevil kind of thing. And that's great. It works fine for that. So when people say, I don't know the 70s, or I was born in the 80s, so I have no idea, it doesn't stop them. It doesn't keep them from having a good time, because it's basically a setting that allows you to have a lot of, directions you can go, and you can have a lot of fun doing what you see. Just to kind of give an anecdote about this, we had passed out the initial plot or the initial draft to several friends of ours, and we were both very lucky that we had a lot of friends who were already in the industry. So we sent it to different people, and one of the feedback that we got was, I really don't know about all of this about the rockers. Those are the musicians.
Yes.
I don't see why you would have this in here. This really detracts from the game, and we felt a little bummed by that. And then we got another piece of feedback from another designer, completely different person altogether, who said, "Oh my God, I love it. I get to be Stevie Nicks." And, and you think about that, and you go, that's okay. I don't mind people being able to get what they want out of it, because that's the sign of a game that has legs, at least, in our perspective, is that people can get what they want to put into it and have a good time no matter what. In fact, to be honest, it's really good when you have contrasting people at the table saying, you know what, I'm going to play a character that, I am absolutely, a member of like the KISS Army, and I'm wanting to do that. Okay, I'm playing Charles Bronson from Death Wish. Go for it, baby. That's a good game, and actually a lot of them do go just that way, and it works great.
It's a really fun game, and like you were saying, the rules are almost kind of suggestions, because even in like the first couple pages of the book, you say like, hey man, if there's something in here that doesn't suit your game or doesn't suit your vision, don't do it. Don't use
absolutely.
it. Don't worry about it. And it's nice to see that, because I've been flipping through the Starfinder guide now for like a month, trying to process all this to run a Starfinder game. And then I open up your book, and it's just like, hey, just have a good time, man. Like, just turn on some awesome tunes, just listen to Zeppelin and have a good time, and make an awesome campaign. And it's really it's very freeing as a storyteller and as a player, because you don't have to be kind of limited by like a heavy set of rules, which I think is kind of rad.
One of going back to talking about the setting of or the rule setting of Apocalypse World, Vincent Baker came up with a really smart system in that it was, you don't have a lot of dice. It's straight up, 2d6. And this is what I really like about it, because I can explain it to people in 30 seconds. So you roll 2d6. If it's 10 and above, it's a success. If it's a 6 and below, it's a failure, but you get an XP, so you're not afraid.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that way you're not afraid to take action.
Yeah.
And then 7 to 9 is a partial success, or a success with a cost, meaning, you may get part of what you want, or you will have half of what you want, and then a challenge to deal with. And when you explain that to people, they get it immediately. And then once they get the basics of it, everything moves a lot faster. And so what I really liked about games powered by the Apocalypse is that you don't have to do a lot of number crunching, because you really want to be focused on telling the best story around the table.
See, and that's another thing I liked about the game too, because you mentioned that. Don't worry about how many bullets are in your gun. Don't worry about how much gas is in your car. Don't worry about that stuff. Just have fun. And it's really nice to see as a player, and again, as a storyteller. Now, as you're crafting, like, how much actual writing goes into the different types of characters and things like that? Did you have a specific like character set in mind when you were building the world, or is it just like, oh yeah, we should do like a Ziggy Stardust? That'd be awesome. Like, how did that kind of build?
Two paths. Part of it was that at first it was, okay, what could we do? And so obviously we wanted to have the tough guy, and obviously we wanted to have, the driver, which in our parlance is the good old boy. And we knew we wanted to have the vigilante who was good with guns. And so we knew that there were lots of things, and we basically stream of consciousness wrote all that down. And then we pared it down to say, okay, what are the archetypes that we know need to be in the core rules? And so that's what broke down to say the sleuth, which is obviously the mental character. What we have is called the honeypot, which is the character that's all about social manipulation. The rocker, the tough guy, as I said, the good old boy. And it really was easy to determine what those basic roles should be.
Yeah,
and actually, please go ahead.
Did you basically just go through like all the 70s movies and say, okay, we need a Shaft, we need a Hooper, we need a
Smokey.
Yeah, is this the process of how it happened, or did you just was it just almost like you were building an Avengers team almost, and you said we need A, B, C, D, and E, and just kind of ran from there when you were paring them down?
Well, here's one of the differences of Spirit of 77 mechanically compared to some of the other Powered by the Apocalypse games. So we have two elements that make your character. You have both your role, which is what you do,
yes,
and then your background, which is called your story. And we have this written out as an example, but I'll go for it a little bit. So the example I always give is the movie Rocky. And Rocky, you have of course the final climax between Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed. Now, in game parlance, both of these are guys who fight, so we would call them both tough guys. Right. Now, Apollo Creed is a professional fighter. He is a professional athlete. This is his job. This is something he's done for 10 years. He has been in this. It's a regimen to him. So for us, he would be called an all-star tough guy. All-star being an athlete or an athletic background. Rocky, it comes from the streets of Philadelphia. He's a guy, around the way. He runs, on the neighborhood. He fights or punches against like the slabs of meat, does a little protection work on the side, a man of people. So he would be what we would call a one bad mother tough guy, guy from the street. Uh-huh. So you have one bad mother tough guy and you have an all-star tough guy. Now, both of them have the same role, but because of their backgrounds, they have different move sets available to them that the other background wouldn't have. So that allows a lot of flexibility. So you can have, as an example, talking about tough guys, $6 Million Man, he would be what we would call an X-Tech, which is our version of the sci-fi tough guy.
Like a robot. He's like a robot, yeah.
Bionics, absolutely. And you have different types of sleuths, like you mentioned Shaft. Shaft, of course, is like a one bad mother sleuth because he's, basically on the streets of New York. Or you would have somebody like a glam sleuth, who in my favorite would be an actor known as Peter Wingart, played in a series called Jason King, which is early 70s. And he had like a handlebar mustache and big collars and all that. Kojak would be another glam sleuth. Yeah. So you would have basically the guy that's really flashy, has the $100 or $1,000 suits, that kind of guy. Same background as a Columbo, but not necessarily with the full abilities as each other.
Okay. Different skill sets is what you're saying.
So you have a lot of variance, and you can have a lot of customization in what you want to do, as opposed to just saying, I am the fighter, or I'm
a bard.
Right.
Even though nobody should ever say that, because God, it stinks to be a bard. But yeah, so the game is just brilliant, but it's not the only game you do. You also do a game called Bedlam Hall that just came out, and this is more of like a gothic horror thing.
So, okay, that's a funny story.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So Bedlam Hall is what I usually describe it as Downton Abbey meets the Addams Family. And what happened is my wife had been finishing up the last season of Downton Abbey, and we were watching it, and I thought about it going, well, this is kind of an interesting thing, but I'm not sure how I would really kind of put it into, a game, because I thought about it, and then I realized the best characters really are the servants. The servants are the ones who have the most drama, and I thought, well, how would you deal with it? And of course, the funny thing is, what if they had to deal with like a Gomez Adams, or what if they had to deal with somebody who was just batshit? Oh, should I say that? Well,
yeah, you can say whatever you want to.
Batshit insane, basically the nut job, aristocracy, and I laughed about that, and I realized that's a pretty interesting game to put together, and so I started working on that and did the Kickstarter earlier this year, and did very well. And right now, as of this taping, it's in pre-order, and we're actually getting the book out, and probably in a couple of weeks it'll be available through Drive-Thru RPG. That's awesome. And Indie Press Revolution.
See, it's interesting because, like, you being a game creator, Kevin and I are comic book writers. We also kind of delve into something that we're watching or something that we're it's interesting to see where we all kind of commonly cherry pick ideas, but just the process
converge. The convergence of it is what you're saying, like where all the ideas meet together and how they converge and then go off in a different paths. Because what Dave does is he takes his ideas and turns them into games, wherein we take our ideas and turn them into stories that could be possibly games.
Yeah.
Like that, because as role players, you and I are role players. We both played many role playing games.
Shit, I play a Spirit of 77 game right now. It's great.
Well, I mean, Dave could run us an adventure.
I would be happy to do so at some point.
That would be fantastic.
Just talking a little bit about influences. When it was first coming together, again, like I said, a lot of pieces were kind of being put together about how it would work. There's a series called Jeeves and Wooster. Not everybody's heard of it, but it stars Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie, and this was well before House and all that, and so
before he was big, is what you're saying.
When he was British, when people thought he was, before people knew he was British.
Exactly. So it's based off of a series of books, and basically Jeeves and Wooster, Jeeves is the butler or the valet for a well-to-do, do-nothing kind of, I don't want to say bubblehead, but he is. He's a himbo, a British himbo. And so what happens is that Hugh Laurie's character has no inkling about how the world works and gets himself in trouble, and it's constantly the job of his manservant Jeeves to get him out of it, who's always somewhat almost superhuman in his abilities to get things done. So that had a little bit of influence, but also when I was originally putting the ideas together, Netflix had just come out with a series of Unfortunate Events.
Oh yeah, okay.
And so I had seen the movie and I read the book when it first came out, or a couple of the books, and the overall tone of the series really influenced me about saying that's how I want it to come across. That's the sound of the narration and the text. And there's a great card game also called Gloom, put out by Keith Baker, who's a really good guy. And Gloom is basically a card game where basically you're trying to kill off the family. And it has an Edward Gorey look to it, and also, in the same vein. We like to refer to a term that came out of this one convention called Dragon Con out in Atlanta, where the term was coined as dreadpunk. And I found that halfway while I was doing it, I died laughing going, oh my God, this is exactly the sound of what we're trying to do, where it's basically you're talking about things being miserable in kind of a wink to the audience sort of way. And it just kind of all came together all at once, and it felt really good. And yeah, people have really come out and said that they like the overall tone. And it's actually really nice to have people who send me emails talking about how miserable they are reading the book, because that makes me feel nice. I'm glad to make their lives a little darker and more depressing.
But you know what? You're doing it all for the right reasons, man. At the end of the day, it's all entertainment. That's what we're doing here. We're entertaining. Whereas, I feel like comics, they build worlds but focus on the characters. In your world, you build worlds and let everybody else kind of take care of the characters.
You mentioned some of your experience in the comics world. One person I really want to always stress, I try to whenever I can, is the interior artist for the Spirit of 77 line is a gentleman by the name of Ron Joseph. And Ron has done artwork for IDW. He's done stuff for ROM, and he's done stuff. He's done a lot of good things. And we were really fortunate to hook up with him. And when we had made contact with him, we said, okay, well, this is what we're trying to do. And we basically sent him a series of different pictures and movie posters and what have you. And he looked at it and said, I know what you're trying to do. And he really was able to develop. He not only had was able to share our vision of what we wanted Spirit of 77 to look like, but he was able to articulate it in a visual way that made it just a little bit better. It took it, just one step, beyond what we had even conceptually thought of. And he is a great artist. Also for, Bedlam Hall, I managed to meet up with a gentleman called Michael Tuck out in Toronto, and Michael had never done any RPGs before either. And he said, "Well, okay, I'm not quite sure what you're looking for, so tell me." So I started sending him all these pictures from Edward Gorey and Charles Adams and all of these things, and he was looking at it, going, "Okay, I think I know what you're doing." And some of the artwork he did in Bedlam Hall is just absolutely amazing to have its own sense, but to make a very clear progression from Charles Adams and from Edward Gorey to say, I know what this is all about.
Well, the Bedlam Hall sounds kind of like, have you ever seen Penny Dreadful?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So that kind of reminds me of that, which is like I loved that show. So I was really sad when they were like, oh, this is the last season, and it felt rushed. I was like, oh, I'm really sad about that.
Yeah, the third season, I always recommend people finish at the end of season 2. It's like season 3 is not unlike season 5 of Babylon 5, where they didn't know that they were going to have it. So like, okay, we got to put all the stuff in and finish it all up. And
yes. Yeah, you definitely can tell it's rushed because they drop all these Easter eggs. Like in the beginning of season 3 of Penny Dreadful, they're like, oh, Imhotep. I'm like, oh, they're talking about the mummy.
Exactly.
That would be great.
Henry Jekyll, and oh my goodness. And
yeah. And I'm like, oh, all these hints of cool stuff to come. And then they're like, oh, and here's the end. And I'm like, what?
Now, I know they came out with a comic series which supposedly continued it. I haven't picked it up, but I know that they wanted to extend the overall universe.
Look, Dave from Monkey Fun Studios is sharing info with everybody here on this. So check it out.
I had no idea. I would totally read a Penny Dreadful comic book. It was great. Have you ever seen it, Bob?
I've never seen Penny Dreadful, but I've heard good things because I've heard you talk about it. But it is interesting to hear how all of our worlds kind of cross over, because when Kevin and I are creating a book, we have a certain image in our head, and there are normal times where we send, stills from movies and things like that. This is the vibe we want to go.
Reference shots.
So it's really interesting because I know people are going to listen to this and go, why are they talking to a guy who writes RPGs? Because it's the same thing. You're still creating these worlds and these references and all kinds of stuff, but and
it's also still storytelling.
Yeah, it's just a different end. That's all.
Right.
And it's really fascinating to hear how these things come together.
It's also co-creative storytelling. Like with comics, it's a writer and an artist. In a RPG, for those of you that aren't familiar, it's a player and a storyteller, or a GM or DM, depending on what game you're playing. So it's all storytelling. And so a lot of the best storytellers in comics also play RPGs.
Yeah.
Because I heard that Greg Rucka, who's probably one of my favorite writers, he runs a Star Wars RPG, and like Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue DeConnick play in his Star Wars RPG, which
that would be a great game to get into.
Oh my gosh.
I even heard Jon Favreau say when the first Iron Man film came out, he said he became a great storyteller and learned how to tell a story by DMing games when he was a kid. So, I mean, it all kind of comes together wonderfully. It's awesome. So before we let you go, Dave, I know you probably got lots of things to do. I've seen your Twitter. You're super busy with Bedlam Hall getting ready to come out. I know you've got some new stuff coming out for...
Oh, I didn't mention Gruel Truck. I apologize.
You can get that in real quick, because I know you've also got some punk rock stuff coming out for Spirit 77, yes?
Yes, I do. So Gruel Truck was one of the stretch goals that we did for Bedlam Hall. It was a joke at one point that I had, or it had come up from some friends of mine on the Gamers Table podcast, that they said, I really want to play a halfling with a food truck. This is a joke that they said, and I was listening to it, and I said, oh, I got to make that. So... basically 3 months later, I emailed Eric Osley, the guy who does Gamers Table, said, I've got your Christmas gift coming. He goes, well, what is it? And It's called Gruel Truck. It's a food truck, a game where you get to be own a food truck in Middle Earth. And he goes, why did you do this? And I said, because you guys kept talking about it. And I'm like, oh my God. And it became one of the stretch goals for
That's awesome.
Bedlam Hall. And people literally said, oh, well, we're so close. We have to have it. And so it's a great game that comes with paper hats, because I think games need more hats. And also want to sell, the artist that we had doing a Gruel Truck was a gentleman by the name of Scott Irwin. Amazing artwork if you get a chance to see it. He is just fabu. We've been very blessed by him. And so that's also coming out as well. And since you mentioned it, our next double feature, what we do is that we have online or downloadable adventures that we put in, 2 adventures in one, which we call a double feature, and they usually come with another benefit. So the next one that we're doing will have what's called the punk background.
Nice.
And so basically, you'll be able to be like a punk tough guy or a punk sleuth, a punk rocker, and
awesome.
a punk honeypot. I had run a game just to test it out at the local LA game convention, Strategicon, and I had basically pre-gens where everybody was playing a punk background. And
awesome.
They loved it. It really took off, and so that's going to be coming up with the next double feature that we're hoping to have out by the end of the year.
That's cool, because the guy who runs my buddy Anton, who runs our Heavy Gigs in 77 game.
Anton, yeah, I'm a man.
He said that you might drop the punk rock game on us, and we might be able to play test it. So that would be pretty rad.
He's got some stuff for you. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to apply him and see what he'll give you. So anyway, the point being is all that's coming. So you can always find out what we're doing on our website, monkeyfunstudios.com, on our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, Google+. We're just about everywhere and anywhere.
Yes, and I will continue to sing the praises of your game and stalk you on Twitter, because more people need to find out about this game, because it's just fantastic.
Why don't you cut a Monkey Fun Studios promo as Buddy White now?
It's just such a great game. The game is just so enjoyable and so much fun. I can't talk about it enough. I think it's fantastic. You guys got a hit, and I hope you become rich fellas from this game, because it's really great.
Yes, my wife would like us to be rich too. But I would also like to say, and this is absolutely the truth, I am just happy that people like it, and I love hearing what people do, their character. Tell me about your character. I actually like hearing
about your character, Bobby.
So, Buddy,
do the voice.
I will do the voice after I explain the character. Buddy White he was a professional wrestler who was groomed to be the next world heavyweight champion, but he got into a plane accident. He was in a plane crash where he was kind of he lost the use of his left leg. He would have been killed. He would have been killed if it wasn't for his top physical condition. And so after his accident, he becomes a private investigator who battles the criminals on the mean streets of Seaside City. And I don't know if you ever watched wrestling growing up as a kid.
Of course I did.
But the gentleman that I'm playing in the game talks just like the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, Dusty Rhodes, son of a plumber. I'm just a normal working man. American Dream.
So I just go off on like these 2-minute rants, just talking like Dusty Rhodes during this podcast, and it's so much fun to do. This world that you've built is just amazing, and I can't.
How about you, Kevin?
I can't stress it enough. It's great.
I haven't gotten a chance to play yet, but I told Bobby, like, if he played Buddy White, I would play Nikita Koloff, so then I would be the Russian knight to his American Dream, and I'd be like, how you say Buddy White? How you say superstar in American? How you say? That would
Bravo. I love it.
You got a great game, man. You got a great game, and thank you so much for making this thing. And again, check it out, monkeyfunstudios.com. Do it. It is wonderful. Spirit of 77, Bedlam Hall, so much more. Thank you so much.
Where can we find you on Twitter?
He already told us all that stuff.
You did?
Yes, we got all it out. All it out.
And we're also available on Drive-Thru RPG and Indie Press Revolution. Check it out.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, guys.
On this week's episode of Word Bros, we talk to Dave. I can't even try to pronounce his last name. Kizzia?
Kizzia.
Dave Kizzia. He is the co-writer.
I think it was Kizzia.
Kizzia?
Hold on, but let's look it up. And then let's re-record the intro.
Well, I have the book right over here, so let me get it.
Okay, yeah, look at the book and tell me how it's spelled.
Why do these people have to have such complicated names?
Because you hate pronouncing anybody's name that's not normal.
What's up?
You hate pronouncing anybody's name that's not normal.
Kizzia.
He said he did say Kizzia.
Okay, so what's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Word Bros. This week we talked to the co-writer of such wonderful role-playing games like Spirit of 77 and Bedlam Hall. His name is Dave Kizzia. He's an awesome dude, and we're really excited to talk to him. I know I am because I love his damn game, and I'm role-playing game obsessed at the moment.
I've never got to play it. And,
we're gonna play, Kevin. We're gonna play.
This is what always happens.
I've sent you the game.
I do have a PDF.
We're gonna play. I sent one to Alfredo. I would like him to play with us too. It's very cool. It's a very fun game. And you might be thinking, like, why are you talking to an RPG writer? Same thing.
It's the basic same concept, guys, as writing comic books, except for you do it in a game context and you co-storytell just like you do with a comic book.
And I would love to write a role-playing game, and I want to kind of get a little insider information on this because, I mean, I love role-playing games. Kevin, I know you love role-playing games.
I do.
Shit, man. Oathbound, the book that you wrote without me.
That sounded very bitter.
That book you wrote without me, you son of a bitch. It's basically a Western D&D. Like, it's a Western fantasy. That's the way you explained it.
It is. It was based on an idea I had for now I don't know who plays RPGs out there that listens to the podcast, but
I do.
There was a time where D&D did an OGL, open gaming license. So I was like thinking what would be a really cool OGL land would be like, oh, what if it was a Western fantasy? Like that, I've never seen anything like that. Like Tolkien meets like Sergio Leone. So I was like, that would be cool. Like I would dig that. Like who wouldn't dig that? And you have different stereotypes. Like a thief would be a gambler, etc. So
yeah,
that was totally the idea behind that.
And it turned into a comic book.
It did, yeah.
Your idea turned into a comic book. Dave takes these ideas and turns them into role-playing games.
And we've also talked about other ideas that we have that we can't.
Oh, dude, I would love to make some of this. I mean, like,
there's a few things that we have as Word Bros that we would like to see made into.
It's not out of the ordinary. If you go to any role-playing game store, I mean,
there's a Sixth Gun role-playing game.
There is an Atomic Robo role-playing game.
Well, that sounds great.
There is a Hellboy role-playing game.
There is, and I would like to play that. So if you're out there and you're listening to this podcast and you want to run a Hellboy RPG for Bob and I, we will totally play.
There is a Mouse Guard role-playing game. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yes, there is a Mouse Guard role-playing game. So the idea of role-playing games and comics, I mean, shit, man, Marvel has one. I mean,
Marvel does have one. Now I have played the earlier versions.
I had Marvel I have it right over here on my shelf because I played it when I was a kid. And the
D100 one?
No, hang on. I'll get the box. Hang on.
With the face rip?
This one.
Yes, that's the one
Yeah.
with the face rip. Yes, it's basically fighting, agility.
And like the game shop I go to, he has mods that you can buy for like $8 that I want to buy just for the shit of it. Like one of them is actually like a Defenders mod. It's Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Doctor Strange, and Black Widow, which would be pretty damn fun to play. But yeah, I played that game when I was a kid, and I was so unoriginal.
I loved that game. I used to play that at lunch.
My character was Green Arrow. Like that was
the Marvel role-playing game you played.
Yes, I made a Green Arrow. It's so stupid.
I played the mutant version of Punisher.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, because the Marvel game I played in took place in Days of Future Past, wherein like the mutants were all gone, or they were like resistance fighters. So basically, the guy who ran our game was like, you have to. The only requirement is you have to be a mutant. So I was like, all right, so you roll your stats up as a mutant.
That's cool. Yeah, that was a great game. I played it for a summer. It was really cool.
Have you ever seen the Ultimate Powers book that goes with that game?
No, I haven't.
The Ultimate Powers book with that game has the weirdest fucking powers in there ever. There's a dude that used to play with us that was really into horror movies. He would take like the grossest powers ever. So it was like really weird. Like they had the weird, gross powers. But
so there you go. So what we're saying is it's not uncommon for the world of RPGs and the world of comics to meet. And I like this game, so I wanted to talk to Dave. So
here we are.
You got a problem with it. So let's get to that. It is Dave Kizzia from Spirit of 77 and Monkey Fun Studios.
Monkey Fun Studios.
Yeah, totally stupid idiot. I totally forgot Marvel had a game and I have it.
Yeah, like that's a TSR game too.
Yeah, that's an old school one. All right, ready?
Yep.
You can take us out, Kev. Take us out.
And that was Dave Kizzia from Monkey Brain Studios.
Monkey Fun. Just give me another one.
That was Dave Kizzia from Monkey Fun Studios, and we had a great chat with him, even off the air.
Yeah, the chat off the air, I wish I was recording because he was giving us some insider information.
He was giving some inside info to us that we can't tell you guys, but we'll just say
don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. I don't want to say anything because what if it doesn't happen? Then we look like liars.
Oh, okay. So, well, we can't say anything.
Then we won't. But man, and it just makes me want to write an RPG, man. Like I would love to try my hand at it just to give it a go. I was telling my wife.
What kind of RPG would you write?
I don't know. That would be the part of it, I guess. Part of the fun would be trying to figure out. It
would be steampunk, wouldn't it?
No, I hate steampunk, man.
That's why I said
just not into it. Like, it's just all the fucking knobs and whistles and shit. I hate it. I hate it. Like, I think it's cool. I like the look.
It looks cool, yeah.
Like, when I see someone dressed up in steampunk, I go, hey, that's neat. And then and I like the idea of it. Like, yeah, it's like, you know, I love the show Wild Wild West, the original TV show. That's a great. That's very steampunkish, but like, I don't know. There's just something about it, man. Like, I don't. It's the same thing. Like when somebody tells me, "Oh, I've got a comic book idea. What is it?" And they go, "All right, so there's an angel," and I'm like, "All right, I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I don't dig religion. I don't dig organized religion. I've never read the Bible. I don't know shit about the Bible. Like, I don't know anything about it. So like when people go, all right, it's an angel. And I'm like, nope. I don't give a fuck. Shut off. Like, I just like, word. Because I have no frame of reference. Now, if you told me like, yeah, I got a comic book idea, what is it?
Elvis fights space aliens.
I'm like, dude, that's cool. Or if it's like, it's the fucking Blues Brothers in space. I go, that's fucking rad. Like, because I get that. I can wrap my brain around the Blues Brothers in outer space. When you tell me,
why don't we write that comic, the Blues Brothers in space? Why don't we do the Word Bros comics in space? It'd be like the Blues Brothers in space.
I love the Blues Brothers. That was one of the first movies. My dad was like, dude, you got to watch this. And I was like, okay. And I love the Blues Brothers. It's just one of those things that it's a
great movie.
It is. It really is. Like, it's just everything about that movie is fucking awesome. I love the Blues Brothers. So yes. So if you told me it's about Angel Blues Brothers, you might get me. I might be like,
Blues Brothers. You might be into that.
Let's lose the Angel part. But so anyway, but yeah, I would love to try writing an RPG. I think it's just fun, man. I was telling my wife that what I wanted to do is take the Starfinder campaign that I want to write for us and then put it online after we play it and then eventually try to collect it and kickstart it.
I mean, it couldn't hurt, but I mean, the only problem is that somebody else owns Starfinder, right?
They have an open game license. I think as long as you're not using like the characters, like the names of the characters in the book, where you could do like, hey, it's the captain of the fucking ship, and you give him the stats.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, that's cool.
You make it rather vague as opposed to you say, well, this race and this so-and-so. It said, well, he's the captain of the ship. This guy is a scoundrel or something like that. So it's more kind of vague. You know,
well, so if you make RPGs like Oathbound the RPG, like that's fun. Like we can do that.
Do it. I mean, you know the world. Do it.
That would be fun. It would be fun. I would love it. But
you have shit tons of art for it. Hey man, the way Dave made it sound with him and Bob, they just started writing.
Yeah, I mean, we could do something.
You just build your world and then you give your archetype. So I don't know. It was a really interesting conversation, and I hope you dig it. Where we do episodes every Wednesday. We're trying to get some other guests lined up. I'm saying we're going out of our league with some of these people we're asking for, but fuck it, why
Yeah,
not?
but I mean, we definitely are. So at least we acknowledge that.
Yeah,
like the fun part about those podcasts is we're not afraid to admit that we are humble beginners, and we definitely seek the masters of comics to teach and impart us.
We're going out of our pay grade on some of these people.
Tom King, if you're listening.
So, but yes, that's the pod this week. We'll be back next week. I know we have somebody next week.
We talked about a few different people, so I guess we'll talk about it when we're done recording.
So there you go, everybody. So thank you for
listening. Leave a review on iTunes if you love the pod, because a lot of people say they love the pod, but we only have 5 reviews.
And one of them is me.
And one of them is me.
There you go. So that's
and I even left my name up there. It was like, hey, this pod is great because I'm on it.
Yeah, because I do it.
Yeah, because I do this pod. It's great. Which is it's just me being silly.
And it was cool, man. So there you go. We will talk to you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening. And
tweet us at Word Bros.
Yeah, tweet us at Word_Bros. We're on Facebook. We're online, the Word Bros. You know where we are.
Find us, yell at us, tell us we suck, tell us we're great.
No, I don't want that. That's too much of that on the internet. I just want to hear nice things.
Just nice things?
Just nice things. So you guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Recording.
No, I didn't. No, I wasn't.
No.